What's up everybody, it's me Blake316 and we're going to take a look back at the Atari Jaguar.
Some of you believe your system is the most advanced in the universe. Let's review the numbers. Sega Genesis is 16 bits, 3DO is 32 bits, the Atari Jaguar is 64 bits. Which is more advanced? Clifford! With 64 bits, 3D graphics, real-world animation, and lightning speed that you can only get with Jaguar, which is more advanced? Clifford!
Can you repeat the question?
Jaguar! Jaguar! Jaguar!
Yes, it is 2020 and we're going all the way back in time, checking out the Atari Jaguar. And if you're not familiar with this console, let me start off by telling you guys this is the first 64-bit console before the N64. Back when the PlayStation and Sega Saturn were 32 bits, Atari Jaguar was like, you know what? We're going to go 64 bits. And a lot of people say it's not true 64 bits. It's not like the N64. I'll agree with you. It definitely is not a 64-bit console like the N64. But I'm going to give Atari their credit. It says right on the console, 64-bit interactive multimedia system. And if they said it's 64 bits, hey, it's 64 bits. Now, the Atari Jaguar was definitely a console that did not have a long lifespan. It literally lasted a couple years. Now, with the Atari Jaguar also, you notice it was a cartridge. They were doing 64-bit cartridges before the N64-bit cartridges. And like I said, PlayStation and Sega Saturn were doing CDs, not Atari. They were doing 64 bits. Hey, you might even be able to say Nintendo copied Atari, right? But eventually, the Atari Jaguar did have an upgrade where you could put a CD attachment up here. As you notice, it's kind of like a CD shape, and you can actually play CD games. I never got that attachment, and to be honest with you, I was never like an Atari Jaguar fanboy or anything. I bought this thing on a discount, and I got literally only 2 games for it. But with that being said, I was such a gamer, I still am a gamer, I wanted it to put it to my collection. I still have it since. But as far as the design, it's nothing too crazy. It has 2 controller ports. Unlike the Nintendo 64, you do 4 players. Here it had 2. It had a basic power button, no reset button, and you just plug in the cartridge. Now, the interesting thing about the Jaguar is the controller. Let's take a look at this controller. Now, looking at this controller, this is arguably top 3 ugliest controllers ever. Like, a lot of people have never seen the Atari Jaguar. And this is probably like, what the hell is that? And after seeing this controller, you're probably double taking. What the hell is this console? Now look at this controller. Now this controller is pretty huge. Now it fits pretty good in my hands because I'm an adult. But imagine being a kid holding this controller in your hands. It's way too big. Now the controller has no trigger buttons. It has a D-pad, no analog. It has a pause and option button. And it has C, B, A, 3 buttons. And then it has like this number pad. Now I'll be honest with you. The games that I have didn't use this number pad, but there were some games where you'd put like a template over here and it had certain commands within the games. But yeah, this was so weird. It was like a telephone pad on here. The only thing that I could tell you is that if you pressed star and pound, it resets your console. So granted, the console itself doesn't have a reset button. If you press these 2 buttons, it would reset for you. Taking a look at the back of the controller, simple Atari logo. The controller, it doesn't have any weight to it. It's very light feeling. But man, this was definitely a funky controller. Definitely, as you can tell, no other company ever tried to steal any ideas off this controller. This is definitely a one of a kind, and I really don't know what Atari was thinking. Mind you, there was like the PlayStation, there was Sega, there was a Super Nintendo, there was a lot of good controllers out. What made them go with this? Who knows? But anyway, enough talking about the console. Let's play some of the games. Alright guys, we're literally about to boot up the Atari Jaguar, and I'm letting you know right now, I don't have any HDMI cables or adapter for it. When I boot it up, it's going to be at classic 480p, and it's connected to my 1080p TV, so it's going to look kind of crazy. I'm going to let you know right now, for my personal speaking, I'm going to let you guys know the Atari Jaguar boot up screen is one of my top 3 favorite of all time. Let me show you why. Let's hit that power button. I really like that boost up screen. It's the Atari Jaguar. It's throwback. It's a classic. it definitely brings back a lot of memories. Now for my Atari Jaguar, I only got 2 games. I got Zool 2 and I got a skateboarding game. And if you guys don't know, like I said earlier in the video, the Jaguar was the first 64-bit console. But the funny thing is, if you compare this console's games to Nintendo 64 games, there's not even a competition. Like these games are like barely 3D unless you had the CD attachment, and they barely even look 32 bits. But the Jaguar was the first 64-bit console, and let's take a look at this game. But this is a snowboarding game, and like for example, this is a 64-bit console. That means this is a 64-bit snowboarding game. Look at this game, and look at games like 1080 snowboarding for the Nintendo 64. Complete difference, right? But as you see, right now, it's a pretty fast snowboarding game, but the graphics is like, it really ain't there as far as 64 bits. Like this doesn't even look like 32 bits. But Atari pushed it as a 32-bit console. Oh, I missed one of the things. And you go really fast in this game, which was pretty impressive for at least at that time, having a game that can go this fast. The Jaguar only really had one good game, which was there was a Doom game, and also the system seller was like the Predator versus Alien game. But the Jaguar is very short-lived. And a funny story about my Atari Jaguar and how I got it. I remember one time I went to a mall, and I believe I had like 50 or 60 bucks in my pocket, and I went to KB Toy Store. When I went to KB Toy Store, they had the Atari Jaguar on sale. That just shows that it was the end of the console lifespan. I literally had $60. I was able to buy a console, and I was able to buy a game. That's how I got my Atari Jaguar. I didn't buy it at launch. I do remember the commercials. I believe it was like 1995, 1996. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's when I remember the Jaguar commercials. And I remember being a gamer at that time, everyone was talking about the Super Nintendo, people were talking about the PlayStation, obviously whatever Sega console. Nobody talked about the Atari Jaguar. I remember that specifically. And it's one of those consoles that just came out and it quickly went by. But as you can see, the gameplay in this game is nothing crazy. Not the graphics, I should say. And here it is. But it is a very fast game. You see me running through trees and I keep missing the markers. But the controller itself also kind of makes the game kind of hard to play. Because if you realize the controller doesn't even have an analog. So imagine having 3D games without an analog. That's pretty rough. And then the D-pad, it's not very good. The buttons on the controller feel kind of clunky. But yeah, that's the snowboarding game. Let's take a look at another game, Zool 2. Once again, gonna give you that boot up screen. Man, that's classic. The funniest thing about the Atari Jaguar, the most impressive part about all these games graphically is the Jaguar boot up screen. And this part too. Like there was parts in the Jaguar games where they showed graphic potential, like there. Like that looks pretty good. Like Super Nintendo wasn't doing that. Sega Genesis wasn't doing that. They were showing that the Atari Jaguar actually had some graphic capabilities. And it's so funny with this game, Zool 2. I never remember a Zool 1. And I always wondered, like, if you notice the opening scenes, like right there, Chubba, Chugs, whatever that is, that's like a candy lollipop company. So I wondered if this was like a spin-off to Candy. But this was the game that I bought with my Atari Jaguar. I mean, it looks pretty good, but keep in mind this is 480p right now on a 1080p TV. And it runs really smooth. But I'll be honest with you, I never really knew like the purpose of this game. Was it just to collect a bunch of items? Like, I don't know why I'm collecting these items. Obviously, I'm bouncing on eggs and they give me higher jumping ability. But it's just a very weird title. Like yin yang gives me two things. But yeah, definitely not the best controller. But unfortunately, because I got my Jaguar at the end of its lifespan, I never got like more games. And yeah, I know I can go on eBay or various retro game stores and buy some Jaguar games, but is anything really worth buying? I don't know, as I keep missing the platform. But yeah, this is 64 bits supposedly. And a lot of people will say like, oh, the Atari Jaguar, yes, they promoted it as 64 bits, but it wasn't really 64 bits. This, oh my gosh, this down to third. But hey, Atari said it was 64 bits, I'm gonna call it 64 bits. Oh man, not doing too good. But honestly, I would love for like Atari or any company to get in the console market again. Sega, Atari, and make it not like play old games, like legit a new console to compete with the Switch, compete with Microsoft, compete with, you know, PlayStation. Will they be able to compete? Probably not. But I would just love that extra option. And that's one thing I loved about this era of gaming, where so many different consoles to choose from. And granted, there was bad consoles and all that other stuff. But you know what? It was just good to have all the options, and I thought it'd make gaming really fun. But yeah, I can't even play this game because I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. But I just wanted to play a little Atari Jaguar in 2020, take a look back at it. I made an infamous video about me getting an Atari Jaguar in my Xbox 360 box, and I never really showed gameplay of the Atari Jaguar. And a lot of people have no idea what this console is. A lot of people never even heard or seen this console before. So it's always interesting to go back in time, especially in 2020 with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox One Series X, and take a look at these consoles. Pretty cool stuff. But anyway, to me, Blake316, I definitely plan on doing a few more reviews on these consoles. Make sure to subscribe for future videos. Who knows what console I'm going to play next in 2020. Until next time, peace.